As you may have heard this evening, entropy is a pretty complicated physics concept. And when I first learned that this was a theme for this year's TEDx, I struggled to make it make sense to me, which is kind of ironic when you consider what entropy is. Entropy is a measure of the disorder or randomness of a system and how it changes over time. In thermodynamics, entropy is a numerical quantity that shows that many physical processes can go in only one direction in time. I had an idea of what this all meant, but I was not sure, so I asked my husband, who happens to be a physics teacher, to make it make sense. He said, high entropy means disorganization. Like a student's mind on a chemistry test when they haven't mastered the concepts yet. The ideas, skills, and concepts they need are in their brains, but they don't necessarily have access to them because their brains are cluttered with other information. Low entropy is when it is the opposite. It's a state of high organization. Think about a subject you know really well. You can have conversations about it, you can connect it to new ideas, but the knowledge is organized really easily and you can access it. Going from high entropy to low entropy requires energy, like cleaning your room. It won't spontaneously make itself clean. You need to expend energy to do so. Learning is the same. A certain amount of energy must be exerted to go from a disorganized mind to an organized one. This means a large amount of random effort does not ensure academic understanding or success. In other words, you need to work smarter, not harder, to master a skill. This was when something clicked for me. I recently read an op-ed in the New York Times titled, "No, you don't get an A for effort," which inspired me to give this talk. In his article, Dr. Grant reflected on how high marks are for excellence, not grit. He said that 2/3 of college students say that trying hard should be a factor in their grades, and 1/3 think that you should get at least a B just for showing up to most classes. But he counters by saying, there's a reason we award Olympic medals to athletes who swim the fastest, not those who train the hardest. What counts is not sheer effort, but the performance that results from those efforts. When I was in high school, I was a very successful and well-rounded B student, and I was perfectly happy with that. I played sports, I had a job, I was very social, and I got into a good university where I thrived. I'm very grateful that my mother put zero academic pressure on me as a child, and the only expectation was that I show up to school every day. She expected me to show up and do my best, and with that in mind, I tried a lot of things. Some of those things have stuck, like exercise and singing, and some of those things I have very quickly decided were not worth my time. In my senior year of high school, I thought I wanted to be a personal trainer, so I took physiology. It was not a graduation requirement, and it was hard. Really hard. The amount of effort needed to even earn a B was not worth it to me. I realized that my brain was not really meant for a career in science. I have a hard time memorizing a large amount of facts, and I'm much better at looking at a bigger picture and conceptualizing how ideas philosophically fit together. This is why I thrived in university, studying literature, creative writing, and theater. Not only was I successful at connecting concepts within a novel, writing short stories and acting out plays, I also enjoyed it, which makes the energy required to be successful minimal. Different people will need different amounts of energy to reach low entropy for different subjects. This same concept comes up in a classic piece of English literature, The Catcher in the Rye. This book is commonly taught to grade 9 students in America, largely because the narrator, Holden Caulfield, is a cynical teenage boy who is experiencing an existential crisis that most high school students face, not knowing what he is good at or what he wants to do with his life. One of Holden's teachers has a monologue towards the end of the book where he is trying to encourage Holden to put in some effort and go into university. He says that an academic education will give you an idea what size mind you have, what it'll fit and maybe what it won't. After a while, you will have an idea what kind of thoughts your particular size mind should be wearing. For one thing, it may save you an extraordinary amount of time trying on ideas that don't suit you, aren't becoming to you. You'll begin to know your true measurements and dress your mind accordingly. On the one hand, Mr. Antolini is encouraging Holden to go to university to learn more about himself. which is really what university is all about. But on the other hand, he is noting that not all thoughts are suitable for all people. This advice is not meant to be discouraging. In some ways, it's freeing. In this age of information, we are often made to feel like we have to be good at everything, that we are not doing enough. And we compare ourselves to all of the influencers and people we see online who are successful at things we can barely comprehend. But we have to understand the amount of effort it takes to actually master a single skill. In his book, Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell says that you need 10,000 hours to master a complex skill. 10,000 hours is roughly 10 years. His rule has been criticized for valuing quantity over quality, which research shows is only one factor in being successful. He modified his rule to say deliberate practice, which is the hardest kind of practice. If you want to be good at something, whether it comes naturally to you or not, you have to spend a large amount of time with deliberate practice. Entropy was not a subject that came naturally to me, but I think my deliberate practice in preparation for this talk helped me to gain a basic understanding of the subject. If, however, I was required to take a test on entropy, I would need to do many more hours of deliberate practice. Let's look at that definition of thermodynamics again. In thermodynamics, entropy is a numerical quantity that shows that many physical processes can go in only one direction in time. Only one direction in time. That is deliberate practice. That brings us to my final point, the flashlight metaphor. I'm not sure who started this concept. It's been referenced for various purposes, but one version of the flashlight metaphor is about focus. If you think of your mind like a flashlight, you can only truly focus on what you shine your light on. So, if you're trying to study for an exam while answering messages from friends and family, and opening various tabs and checking random notifications on different apps and social media, you cannot really say that you are giving your studies full attention. Your flashlight is focused on too many things. So, how do we go from high entropy to low entropy for a subject that you need to master? First, grit is important, but deliberate practice is more important. And if your teacher gives you feedback, you should take that feedback and apply it immediately. And if, after 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, those concepts are still not sticking, you might need to consider an alternative path. And that's okay. Find what is suitable for you, what works in your mind, what gives you meaning and joy in your life. And when you do that, you'll find low entropy, order, peace. As Dr. Grant said, you don't get an A for effort. You get an A for showing your knowledge on a subject. And hopefully that knowledge sticks. Thank you.